Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Waste World Podcast. I'm Gage Edwards, your host of the podcast that we try to do weekly, but sometimes things get super busy, like when you're trying to produce the Waste 360 40 Under 40, and that takes all hands, so we miss a few weeks. But we're back with a fresh new episode, one you'll be hearing today, a fresh new episode next week during Waste Leadership Summits, that will come out, and then new episodes following throughout the summer. As long as everybody stays home and doesn't go on summer vacation, they can take phone calls from me. Anyway, let's get into it. Today we're talking about something that's becoming super important across waste and recycling. That is data transparency and recycling verification. Major events often promote ambitious sustainability and diversion goals, but one of the biggest questions usually remains at the end: what actually happens to all of that material after it's collected? Well, we're here to find out, and we're here to find out how that story goes and what that process looks like. So, if you like the episode, make sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple iTunes, podcasts, wherever you find your podcast. Rate us, leave us a review. Let us know what we need to do next. And let us know someone who should be on the show. Share us with a friend and enjoy the episode. Thanks. Joining me today is JT Marburger, CEO of Circular Solutions. JT and his team are introducing the company's Circular OS platform to the Indianapolis 500 this year, using technology and downstream verification to track recycling outcomes at one of the largest single-day sporting events in the world. Their work focuses on improving transparency around diversion and recovering data, helping organizations move beyond estimates and better understand the full life cycle of recyclable materials. We'll cover all that and more on today's episode. JT, welcome to the Waste World Podcast. How are you doing?
Gage, I'm good. Hey, can I tell you something I love that you said?
Go ahead.
It says that you loathe littering.
Yes. Yeah, I really do not like it. And it's one of my major pet peeves, that and people like using the opposite hand to talk on the phone with the different ear. That's a whole other thing. But yeah, I really hate littering. Anytime I see somebody just not going out of their way to put something in a trash can or recycling receptacle, which are available everywhere, you see them constantly, they're impossible to miss, that drives me up a wall. I can't stand it.
You know what I loathe? Can I tell you what I loathe?
Yes, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. How does recycling or littering become political or geographic? It drives me crazy. I have no idea how that has happened.
Right.
And so one of my missions is I'm walking through the back door and I'm going to talk to them about cost savings, because everybody cares about saving money. So
right.
And when you recycle more, you spend less on your waste and recycling. And I'm always trying to engage the C-suite, or the people say, well, I don't believe in recycling, or it's not my politics, or I live in Texas. I'm like, what? How does that even matter?
Yeah, just because you live in Texas, like, well, I can throw trash on the ground. Who cares? I'm in Texas.
Whatever, I lived in Texas. Right? They love Texas, right?
Yeah, I go to Texas all the time. And if littering is just something they do down there, shame on you, Texas.
It isn't, but I'll hear sometimes. So sorry, that's how I wanted to start today. So
look, I think that's a good reminder for everybody at home that littering should be a bipartisan issue that we should all be on the same side of. Don't do it. It's just so simple. It's just such an easy thing. Man,
you loathe it. I do too.
I loathe it. It's one of the top thing on my list where I'm just like, I hate this. I wish I could get rid of this forever. All right, JT, let's get into why we're here today. We're talking about circular solutions and something you guys are doing that is really cool, and that's something I really wanted to talk to you today. But before we get into that, I'd like to hear more about circular solutions. And for someone hearing about it for the first time, like, what does your company do and what problems are you trying to solve?
Sure. Basically, I'm trying to bring the recycling industry into, I sit on a UN Global Compact board. And so I get to they give me a lot of research. I got to do a lot of study. And I'm like, oh goodness, here we go. And it's interesting. I saw one of the free articles I just recently read, and they compared how the technology being used for waste and recycling was equal to the 1970s. And I would agree with that. So I'm an entrepreneur. It's my sixth company. I've been engaged in recycling and setting up circular economies 21 years ago. And I thought it was important to always be able to have traceability, simplify, the claims you're making, I started making apparel, and I would tell how many bottles were made from that, and how did I prove that? How did I show that? When you take a plastic bottle and it gets recycled, you can't tell the difference whether it was recycled or virgin. And so I wanted to identify that. So when I formed Circular Solutions, I wanted to still say, how do we get better data? Because it's interesting around ESG and sustainability reporting. There's no set standards like financial reporting, right? You know, the EBITDA, you know, the balance sheet. With ESG, there's no standards, right? What is the standard? Is there a landfill diversion standard? Is there a standard? And so I saw a need to get first and foremost is get accurate data. And then when you have accurate data, then you can measure and talk about it. So that was the reason I started Circular Solutions. And so we've made great advancements. I'm super excited about our latest software that just got launched at the Indy 500. So yeah, and it's providing that transparency. And when I say transparency, no one's being deceptive. It just, when you have systems using spreadsheets and things like that, it doesn't create transparency. So
right, we want a clear picture of what's going on, right? Everybody 100%. Does. All right, so you mentioned the Indy 500 a little bit there, so let's talk about that. One of the biggest sporting events in the world. So why was this the right event to showcase recycling verification technology?
Well, I think 350,000 people at once shows, how it's important, because there's so much planning and resources put against this, and you only have one shot, right? I've done 7 NCAA Final Fours, and unfortunately we had misses where the material didn't get verified, and it's over. The game's over, so you can't do it. And so it's really puts pressure to get it right so that you can show the impact and then measure it. And then once you measure it and you confirm it, then good things happen. You can share the story. And so that's why we love events like this. So,
Are you a big sports fan yourself, JT?
The best, biggest. You name the sport, you name it, I love it. So
okay, as listeners on the show will know, I went to school for sports broadcast journalism for a little bit. So I'm a big sports guy also. Maybe we should get into that in a little bit, see if any of these events are making me double sad.
Did you go to Kent State? Is that where you went?
Yep, I went to Kent State University. Good program over there. Golden Flashes. We're the whipping stick for the first week in college football. Alabama, they'll give us a bunch of money to beat us 56-0, and we get some new uniforms out of it. Whatever.
Love it.
All right. So you've talked about how most recycling data is, estimated, self-reported. How common is that issue across the industry?
It's very common. Again, it's not because there's no one that's just trying to create deception. What happens is, I actually was at a hauler and a MRF this morning, believe it or not. What a way to start your day, huh? Yeah. Nothing better. So some biscuits and some waste and recycling to start the day, right?
Yeah.
So I and we were going through, hey, when the truck pulls into your facility, it was a material recovery facility. I know your weight scales, and we were looking at adding some hardware so that we can do it. And I said, so when they come on those weight scales, if we put this piece of hardware on there, would that make it easier for you? And they're like, no one is in the weight scales. No one measures this. And I said, oh, okay, how do you do it? They write it on a piece of paper, and they bring it back to their corporate office, and that's how they do it. And that is how it starts, right? So when somebody's writing something on a piece of paper, and that's the documentation, it's a challenge from the get-go. So I've found a better way to do it. Good news is that we abstract that piece of paper, and I don't care if they write it on a napkin with crayons or whatever, we abstract the data. And so what would happen now with all these plants, they do this, is they still are writing notes and writing things on pieces of paper. And then somebody has to convert that to a spreadsheet. And it's just, we're not using today's technology. And so my method when I started Circular Solutions is, I got to change this. This makes no sense to me. And that's what we've done. So we don't accept spreadsheets. We don't accept manual entries. So this morning when 2 of those trucks came over, they filled out a piece of paper. They upload that paper into my software. It converts it. if it can't be confirmed, it doesn't get tracked or verified. So.
Mhm. Yeah, I think in most situations, when you add different layers of people reading something, entering something, blah, 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 you start losing a little bit of that information, right? So your solution kind of takes that out of it.
Correct. It
Cool.
does. And it's not the supply chain's fault either. What happens is a lot of times at the venues, the big miss I see at venues is they don't take the material out of the plastic bags. And so somehow it doesn't get communicated. So the Indy 500 would be a good example that you have temporary labor. And so they think they're doing a good job. They pull the bag, they pull the recycling with the liner, and then they put the liner into the, roll off or dumpster. Well, that can't be opened at the MRF. So that's not the MRF's fault. I'm sure somebody somewhere told them to do it, but they didn't comply. So our job is, hey, let us give you a snapshot. Let us confirm that all the right operational procedures are happening at that loading dock. And then once it's at that loading dock, let's follow it. Let's see where that's going. You can't follow, like we couldn't follow the Indy 500. We'll use, because we did this for Coca-Cola. We can't follow the bottles and cans all the way back to production, but we can follow it into the MRF, and then we confirm at the MRF that the MRF is trading it. And the reason that's important is, say you were doing cups and say that MRF doesn't recycle cups. Well, you don't want to send it there. So the communication breaks down. So and that's the problem. It's a fragmented market. We don't want to be, we stop the fragmentation. We put it all on our platform, and they see they're verified. They see everybody that touches it in the supply chain. And then how we circle it back to the plant, back to the Indy 500, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, is we take what they purchase and then we tell them how much recycled content's in there. So that way it's truly 100% accurate. We use the EPA's waste diversion tool for landfill diversion. We took their tool that's used on a spreadsheet, the favorite way of waste and recycling is managed, and we put it into our technology. We took the EPA's recon tool, embedded it in our technology, and so all someone has to do is load in those pieces of paper and let the technology takes care of things. So we're super excited. When I first started this, I created a scalable model. We have a version now that's $500 a year. It's less than a recycling bin. I mean, I have to go on site and I used to have to charge $25,000. I now have a $500 a year. So we're really excited. This version just got launched 2 Fridays ago. And so Indy was our first event, and knock on wood, worked out really well. So.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear it. Let's get just going through my script here. We're talking about Indy 500. What else do we have? So a single day event like the Indy 500, 350,000 people. It's a unique challenge. What makes that a unique challenge from a recycling data perspective? We might have covered it a little bit, but can you go further into that?
Yeah, I think our biggest challenge is the training of the temporary staff, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're managing the flow of people, and making sure, again, as I mentioned, they get the material out of the plastic bags. They're putting recycling in the right place. They're not putting it in waste. And then our work really doesn't, we take over after that. So once the bulk delivery gets sent to the material recovery facility, then really the data, the documentation is uploaded into our system, and then it just takes care of it. And our system will take a document, and if something doesn't match, in this case we didn't do it, but sometimes at major events we actually know how much was sold, and then we'll compare it to how much is collected. And so last year we did Club Cup for FIFA World Cup. So. Mm-hmm. And when you're showing a higher recycling rate than ever sold, the technology red flags that to say, wait a minute. And in this case, we found stuff was pulled from the parking lot, water was in there. So the technology catches faults. So long story short, it's not a heavy lift for us. It's probably more of a heavy lift for the event crew and the operations team. For us, it's fairly straightforward. So.
Great. How do you think verified recycling data could change accountability for venues, brands, and event organizers?
Yeah, I think one thing that really grabs my attention is that in the numbers I've seen, I'll have to look at the different studies and surveys that I hear 80% of the US consumers don't believe it gets recycled. So people say, I put this at my curb, I see this, and I see the same truck
Hmm.
pick up my trash and recycling. Well, what they don't know is that truck could do both, but they don't know that. So there's a lack of confidence, and I think the best way to prove it is with actual documentation and spreadsheets, as I mentioned. So, say that guy that drove at Republic Service didn't fill the form out. So you need to have actual documentation to prove it, and then it's there. And then once you believe it, I think it changes people's recycling rate. Because I hear a lot of people say to me, I don't know if I should recycle because I don't think it even happens. So it really makes a huge impact. And then you can measure, you can create, uniform goals and things like that. But it starts with really good data, and that's what we're here to improve. So.
Yeah, I think in the conversations that I've had with people outside the industry, it's always been well, I don't know if it's actually getting recycled. What's the point in doing it if it's actually not going to some place? Well, what are the numbers behind it? Am I making a difference? Like, well, yeah, when we put it all together and you see the hard data, we're making a difference. And that makes people want to do it more and more. So hopefully what that brings to, you know, just regular homes are like, yeah, okay, I will have a recycling bin, or I will make sure I sort my trash a little better, or I will keep the food waste out of it. And we're seeing on our end sustainable customers kind of, pop up here and there. Do you think consumers and attendees are starting to demand more proof that sustainability claims are real?
I think that's a great question. I think a little bit about my original statement about politics and geography.
Mm-hmm.
The world is going through an anti sustainability phase. This is how it works. I've been in this for 21 years. So it has ebbs and flows. So, why I like to focus on the economics, because that never changes. There's always an economic everybody wants, if they're for profit, no matter what, even if you're not for profit, you got to stay in business. So I always love to focus on that. So I think that there's less of an emphasis, as you and you loathe littering, I do too. Why would, this is our earth, so that always should be relevant. It should never
Mm-hmm.
matter the political landscape, but it isn't a secondary role. But what's funny is we do a lot of concert halls and stuff, and so I had a recent conversation with the people that manages a stadium arena, even like International Motor Speedway, right? They'll have a concert there. And I said, so what are you seeing from the music artists and those people? Are you seeing them go on that same trend and demanding less around sustainability and recycling? And they said, absolutely, more than ever. So it's funny. I almost think the artists are so upset that this has taken a back seat that they feel they have to step it up even more. So right, if you and I are managing, you always should do it, but that's just not reality what we're in right now. And so it is funny. I think I was invited to the UN Global Compact because I'm a business guy, first and foremost, and so it gives sustainability managers a chance, because generally speaking, right, they're science based. They generally are, they're not doing the profit and loss for the business. So, but it comes down to that, right? The CEO of International Motor Speedway has to think this is important in order for this to happen, and he does. And so that's exciting when you have a property. And I'm seeing we're doing with Coca-Cola and the World Cup, we're doing the same thing for all those venues, and they have been amazing. So we're anxious to have that technology kicking in for those as well. So, and we're also doing the LA 28 Olympics. So
Nice. Is Circular Solutions a ploy on your end to get free tickets to sporting events and concerts? Because that's what
so
I'm using it for.
it's the only reason I'm doing this. I'm not
Right.
doing it for any reason. You and I, Gage, where do we want to go see? You want to go see World Cup? Where are we going?
I'd love
Right?
to.
I was
Again,
like,
being a sports fan and being also like on the journalist side, I'm like, how can I leverage reporting on good stuff to get me into places for free? And it works sometimes.
so it's funny. I used to be in the branded, so I had the college license and all the league licenses and sponsors for many years. So after a while, it does become a little bit common, but sure, I love sports. What the heck? What a great way to, right? It's a combination of both, right? Indy 500, and let's stop that littering. Let's get that stuff back into the supply chain, right?
Right, right. The amount of friends who ask me if I get to go to like the WM Phoenix Open, I'm like, no, I'm not on that list yet. Well, yeah,
Yeah. Now you know someone.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. All right. So beyond sporting events, where else can you see this kind of verification becoming important?
That's what's great everywhere. I mean, it's funny. We do museums and zoos. So, like for zoos, we're measuring elephant waste and it's with real weights.
Mhm.
And so, I always love to use this one. I'm in Hilton Head, South Carolina today. So I did golf on Monday. So
Okay.
at Harbortown Golf Link. So which was fun. Why somebody pays those high fees, I have no idea. Fortunately, I got a deal, and so it's great. I one of the people we put on our platform was the Outside Foundation, and what they do is they take all of the oyster shells from the restaurants in Hilton Head, and after you eat the oysters, of course,
Mhm.
and they take the shells and they replant those in the Calabogie Sound that follows the 18th hole of Harbor Town. And so it's always like for brands and the PGA and the RBC, a lot of big names that want to protect their brands, they want to make sure that's the case. So we get the actual weights of it coming in and going back out to the plant. And so what a great story to tell. But it starts with the data, right? These
Mhm.
brands are not going to talk about this without firm data, right? It's like, because say, right, I felt like with the Keurig Dr. Pepper SEC fine, I know the large brands I worked have stopped talking about it because of concern of, in this case, it was the SEC fined them. They claimed the pods were being recycled. Well, if they had used our technology, which didn't exist then, they would have found out that it wasn't being recycled. It would have solved that problem. And so it had I believe, a really big impact across a lot of brands. And so long story short, you asked me where. It's everywhere, from
Mhm.
airports, convention centers, to we're working with the hotel industry to, we say, if you're buying a recycling bin, don't you want to verify it's working? Otherwise, don't bother. I mean, when I first started this 7 or 8 years ago, 90% of the places I were, they thought they were recycling. It wasn't the hauler's fault, it wasn't the MRF fault. A lot of times it was the operations fault. And I said, just get rid of the bins, just throw it all away because they're not recycling anyway. So save yourself some time. And so why even bother until you can verify? And that gives me such pleasure that we now have a verification process. And we're talking to the recycling bin companies to say, hey, offer this a package. So again, why buy a bin until you confirm it's really happening? So
Right. Yeah. You don't want people buying bins just as a cosmetic or as nice to have in their airport. Like,
right.
okay, and data goes such a long way for your public perception, for your business, for your investors to see that you're doing the right thing or that things are happening and there's a monetary value there. It's just, I think everybody needs it.
It
My opinion.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's you do need to. I treat it like financial data. The good news is that I've worked with Coca-Cola for 35 years, and one of my jobs has always been to protect the brand
Mhm.
and protect myself a little bit of self. Or I'd be watching sporting events from prison, or no, I'm teasing. But it was just, and so I always, I mean, to the point of, so I used to put the number of bottles it would take to make a Coke t-shirt. And so when I looked at the imports of the yarn, I couldn't get evidence of how many bottles. So I built my own plant. So I've been very focused on making sure everything we claim is defensible. And this is kind of our latest project. And I found a niche, right? I found a niche where it's really needed and no one else has done it yet. And so which is good and bad, right? I have people that are like, well, who else you compare? I'm like, I wish there was somebody else. It would be easier, but I don't have anybody. So being the pioneer has its pluses and minuses. We have 29 pilot programs underway, and we're hoping for big things. So.
Oh, great. Well, I have a Diet Coke bottle right next to me, so I'm
Perfect.
protecting the brand as well.
Put that in your bin, and then we need to make sure it gets to the right place.
Right.
We're not sure after it goes and gets processed, but then when you buy it again, it would be nice. So right now there is no reporting mechanism like at the Indy 500 of when you bought that back. Well, how much did Coke put in there? What was the recycled content they put in? And we only measure domestic recycling. So if Coke imported the PET flake from another country, we don't verify that. We don't allow that as verification, as I told you in my experience, because you can't prove it. And so unless I can see or follow the supply chain, we don't verify. So
yeah, and you want to be on the hook for being wrong or anything like that. So it's like we'll verify what we can verify.
Correct.
Could we eventually see verified recycling and recovery data a standard across, or a standard expectation across the industry?
Absolutely.
How far do you think off we are from that?
That's what I'm solving. I'll tell you my hardest challenge is that I require entities to upload their data right now. So we're looking into other solutions. So one of the reasons I was there today is adding some hardware, like it takes a picture of the weight scale, so you do nothing and it gets loaded to our software. So always to make it easier for them, but we've taken a huge step for the first time ever that everything is followed up with a document. When you see a number, it's always connected to a document. And it used to sit in the MERS file cabinet or the haulers file cabinet or my file cabinet. It doesn't do that anymore. It sits on the platform. And then we give properties the right to, and obviously without AI, without today's, right, it couldn't have been done before, right? We couldn't contact all these haulers and MERS. AI does all that. And as well as reads the files and stuff, and it captures the things that are the most important. So it's exciting. We've used today's technology to scale and make this more feasible. And so I think our last thing is how do we not have them not even having to upload that? And so that's what I'm working on. And when that becomes, then it will become standard. So, and the good news is we have a number of we have states that have EPR, extended producer responsibilities, and volleyballs looking at our software as a game changer, because there's a lot of misinformation, and it starts in the beginning, right? When you're doing this piece of paper, that's not a good way to start something. I would agree when they say it's the 1970s technology. Might even be further than that. When did they start making paper? I mean,
before my time.
Well, and I've compared it before. Like some people, I like to dumb it down. It's QuickBooks for waste and recycling, right? You can just take a picture of the receipt. You don't have to get it and put a big, right? I started in the pharmaceutical business, and I used to have to staple all my receipts, and I'd send it to my boss and he'd check it off like that. Just upload it like QuickBooks. It's done. And that's what it does. That's what it does. So we don't even want them to have to upload it. And when we do that, I think it's going to be even better. But we're super happy with what we're doing. We're going to continue, right? This is a bottomless pit. So,
and then if we look a few years ahead, or in the next few years, sustainability reporting, ESG expectations, they're going to continue to evolve. What role do you think transparent recycling will play in the near future?
I mean, it has to. So what's happened, right? You always got to look at Europe. So most of my work for the first 15 years was before Circular Solutions was in Europe, right? I did the London Olympics, I did the Rio Olympics, World Cup. And they're always, the reason they're ahead is because there's taxation associated with it. So when there's a tax, you have to have documentation. Since that's new to us, right? We just now are getting states and stuff like that. So no one is invested like us into the technology to create the tracking that's necessary. As more states create legislation, but will never be 100%, or people like us that have worked with some of the great brands, it allows me to invest with the opportunity to get a return on my investment. Haven't yet. We're hopeful that's coming soon. But there's a little risk. There's a bigger risk in this area because there's not like carbon credits in other areas, or if you're in a certain city, you're required to do certain environmental things to fit within the law. Ours is voluntary. Obviously, if our software becomes used by these states, it won't be. So that's a really good move. But we want to do it for all states. We think all states. I work in southern Idaho, and they'll never set up a recycling system like the rest of the places. It's remote. It's hard to do. It doesn't make sense financially. I won't go into what we do there, but it's important to measure whatever the state is. Again, as I said, politically, geographically, everybody should be recycling, and we should be turning this. It drives me nuts, especially with plastics, right? Big oil is making more and more plastics. That's where they're making money. And so they're not going to stop. We need to be reintegrating this plastics instead of using virgin oil. We want it to be used recycled. So.
Excellent, JT. That's the end of my questions there, but I can't let you go before giving you some flack about your favorite sports teams. How about NFL? What are you thinking? Who's your favorite team in the NFL to root for?
Really? You're going to have to go there with me.
I just want to make sure if I can let you go without giving you a hard time or not.
Yeah, what the heck? Falcons, and right now everybody says 28-3. I don't care what we do. We lost to the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
So yeah, every time we do anything, Atlanta's hot today. Well, let's have ESPN reshow the Super Bowl with New England and that. What's that quarterback? I think Tom.
Some
Brady,
right on the middle guy. Who knows?
Bradley or Brady. Yeah. So I love the Falcons. I grew up in. I was born in Erie, so I was obviously a Pittsburgh fan. But I unfortunately love the Falcons.
I unfortunately love the Falcons.
But I really love the Atlanta Braves. So let's talk about a good team.
That's how. I mean, for me, I live up near Washington D.C. I'm a big Baltimore guy. I was since I was younger. So I have a Ravens shrine behind me. You can't see, and there's a Orioles thing back there. I don't really like to talk about baseball because the Orioles are so bad. I can't even bring myself to go to the games that much. I'm just like, man, you guys suck. What's going on?
Man, so when I grew up, the Orioles were the best. I mean, I was young, like Jim Palmer, and oh my gosh, I have to think of all the great players for Orioles, but unfortunately, they've not been good in a long time. It's a shame. They were the class organization. Was Earl Weaver the manager back then?
He's got a statue out there.
Does he? Yeah, he was phenomenal. And I remember when you built your park, it was great. But yeah, the Nats are pretty interesting. I think they're better than expected this year. They gave the Braves a hard time, and we've been rolling through everybody. So I think they're leading the league, the Nats, in batting average this year.
Well, I went and saw a Nationals-Orioles game, and the Nationals won 13-3. So I had a real good time up there.
You hate the Nats?
I'm not a Nats fan, but I would rather see everyone else lose.
Okay, got it.
All right, JT, anything we didn't cover today that you'd like to go over with Circular Solutions, the Indy 500, and your new operating system here?
I think we're perfect. Hopefully I did what you needed. Did I get you off on different tangents? Probably.
I think so. I like to find ways to get my guests to keep on talking there. And I think we did a good job. I think you covered everything.
Good.
And then I guess my last thing here is for people who want to learn more about Circular Solutions, where can they go?
They can go to circularsolutions.eco. So when you see .eco, it's a little different. We love that. So
excellent. Well, JT, thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Good to meet you. Call me when you need some tickets.
All right, that was today's episode. That was our conversation with JT. Thank you so much, JT, for being here, for talking with us, and running us through why sustainability reporting and recycling goals are important to verify that data. We need it. We all need it. It's important. From the conversation, it's important. We learned. I'm taking a little more time with the outro because I sped through the intro because I feel like you guys just want to hear the content. So I'm keeping those intros short. The outro is kind of just a space for me to talk. And this is probably what you end up skipping. But I hope not, for my own sanity. Anyway, Thank you again to JT for joining me. Thank you for listening to the Waste World podcast. Be sure, as always, that you're subscribed, that you leave a review on the podcast and the episode. I think on Spotify you can comment on the episodes individually. And visit waste360.com for more information, more conversations, and more insights from across the waste, recycling, and sustainability industries. We'll see you next week. And remember, it's our world. Let's not waste it.